hell's happening. Maybe just too many videos. Let's see if it's gonna work. But yeah, you can't move one without moving the other unless you just disassemble them. Move the snap ring and disassemble them. But the name for this one here, this gear, the one with teeth, the other one here is called the ring gear. This one is called the sorry guys, I gave you the wrong name. This one is the ring gear. The one with the teeth is the ring gear. The one without the teeth, the one that goes on the clutch rollers there, the automatic bearings there we were talking about, it's called the output shaft with clutch outer race. Oh, what the fuck is that name? Race? As if we were having a race. I'll just place them here underneath each other so that you see how they go. You see? That's how it goes there. Okay, so if the pinions are turning, which happens when this shifter here, shift collar, is backwards, pushes the sun gear in, it allows these to turn. Now if these are turning, then you can see that I can hold this stationary while these ones are turning. Just a little bit. See that? See? See, there you can see the transmission turning, but this here is not turning. Now remember, these two, they're connected inside. I'm talking about the clutch cam. So the way this is set up right now, we have the automatic transmission, because although we're not transmitting power through here, you're transmitting power through here with the clutch rollers. Now this will turn either way. See? So now, so the way this is, just as I showed you now, is transmission power is going to the clutch cam here. So it's going through the automatic transmission, if you will. Right? Now, if I pull this out so that it pushes the ring gear, sorry, not the ring gear, the sun gear, the gear that goes inside this. Remember, there's a gear right in there. If I push this collar here outwards like that, see, in, out, towards the back. This would, the drive shaft would be here, right? So I'm pushing it towards the drive shaft. Now it's actually pulled the ring gear connected to the gear that's on the this metal part here. Okay. On this side of the metal, of the cage, the pinion cage, are the spline. It's splined to go on the shaft. But on this side, it's got teeth that mesh with the teeth of the sun gear. So the moment that this sun gear is in, it's actually now moving. It's actually now locked the pinions. You'll see that I'm moving the transmission, but these gears, these little gears here, which are called pinions, they're not moving. They're not moving around themselves. Okay, they're locked. You see? Look, they're locked. You can't move them. The whole thing is moving. Yeah, the whole thing is moving, but these outer gears, they're locked. They're not moving. Once again, this is in. These gears are moving. Look, you see? You can see them moving around themselves. They're moving around the shaft here. See that? Look, they're moving. Both directions. Once I push this in, now they're locked, you see? You can even, if it helps, just mark a line through the top and you'll see that they don't move. Now what that does is it locks up, and now, remember this pinion cage goes inside this ring gear. So now it's transmitting power through here instead of through the rollers. They're still turning in there, but you know, now there's There's no centrifugal force. It's not going through here. It's going through here now. So it doesn't matter if they're sticking out. Remember, it's a centrifugal force. If you get a bucket or a small bucket, you put water inside it, okay, and you start to turn it around really fast. Even though the bucket is like upside down, it's called actually centripetal force. Okay, pushes the water upward, and the water won't fall out of the bucket. So here's the same thing. Since the transmission is going through here now, through the ring gear, well, this here is just doing nothing, just following along. So now you'll see that the transmission is connected to this whole shaft here, this big piece here. I just call this entire piece, this here, I just call it the output shaft. Really, the manual just calls this portion of the output shaft, but and they do give separate names. Like I said, for this is the outer race gear. I don't know, that's the stupidest name I've ever seen. I'm just going to call this the ring gear, and this is going to be called the roller gear. Okay, so once again, if these teeth are locked, if the pinion is locked, the pinions are locked, then now everything is turning as one. So basically what you have now is it's just turning. It's a manual transmission now, 3-speed manual. The way it is now, whatever gear I put in here on the manual transmission is being transmitted through here. Okay? So if I put it in second, there it is in second, not turning very fast. Put it in third. See, it's now turning a little faster. If I put it in first, it's turning out very slowly. And you can actually mark. I actually made a marker. You can mark and just see how many turns you have to give on the input and see how many turns it gives on the output shaft. Okay, so now just for you guys to see, I've already made a mark here. An orange mark with a crayon. I'm just going to put it in neutral so we can realign the marks. Put it in gear. Now I'll just remove the camera here, show you guys the marks. So I made a mark here. These marks are unnecessary because they're always together. Remember, these two are connected. Made a mark here on the input, on this here and this here, just so that I can know when is a full turn, okay? And I'm just gonna, or you can just, mark one and see which one is up in this case. So that one is facing straight up right now. So if I put the transmission in first gear, I'm going to give here, let's see, one full turn. There we have one full turn. You see, where's the mark? It actually only gave maybe half a turn. Let's give this another turn. Okay, so that's another quarter turn, that's another half turn, still no mark. 3/4 turn, 2 turns, and there's still no mark. So right now the engine gave 2 turns, and this side only gave, it hasn't given a single turn yet, a full turn. So basically there's a lot of force. It's just like driving a bicycle. Okay guys, let's give it another turn, see if it finally shows up. Another turn. Oh, there it is. So I gave it about another half turn, so 2.5 turns. There's a mark facing upward. So on first gear on this T96, it's approximately a 2.5 radio, 1 to 2.5, 2.5 to 1 radio for first gear. That's what, if you read your manual, it says there gear radios. That's what it means here. This has to give 2.5 turns, and the wheels are only giving 1 turn. well, the drive shaft, I mean. The wheels are only giving maybe even less than that. I'm not sure of the differential, but now if I let me realign it, I'm going to put it in neutral. Gears facing up again. Marks facing up there. Mark facing up there, and I'm going to put it in second gear. Actually, let's put it in reverse. Now here's the thing, I might as well show you already. Remember, if that gear, not gear, yeah, the ascend gear is pushed in, the plate here, it's sort of disconnected it. But if the sun gear inside of there where my finger is, and the collar are pushed in, remember, then these pinions here, they're freewheeling, they're just turning around, and the power of the transmission is going through this automatic rollers here. Now watch what happens when I put the car in reverse. You see, it pushed the collar, it pushed this back that way towards the drive shaft, which caused the sun gear there to go into the teeth, to mesh into the teeth here, and now power, the transmission is no longer going through here, it's going through the teeth, through the pinions here, right? So basically it's now completely manual now. Completely manual. So whatever I do here, it's going to reflect here. Whereas before, if you go here, remember, it goes and engages and disengages depending on the speed. It'll engage if the speed of the engine is greater than the drive shaft, and it'll get overrun if the car is turning faster than the engine. But now you see that goes this cylinder, this shaft, little shaft here, goes in through here, and it actually gets connected. It's touching that half sort of weird shaped piece of steel that's in here. And so when you put it in, when you shift into reverse, it mechanically pushes this outward, which forces this back into a manual mode. Okay, if you had this in automatic, then remember, it would turn the other way, and it would just get overrun, and the car wouldn't move at all because the engine is turning faster, but it's turning the other way. Okay, the other way that doesn't engage the roller, so that's why this happens. Okay, so let's just see how many turns we need in reverse. Let's give it one turn. It's going to be more than in first gear. One turn. There's two turns. Still no sign of the mark. There's three turns, and the mark is just a little under the top. So it's actually, for reverse, the engine is turning 3 times faster than the drive line. Okay, about 3 times faster. I believe the manual says 3.11. I don't know why they make it like that. You know, if it was me, I'd just put 2 and 3, but maybe size of the gears, I don't know. But it's about 3 times as fast, which means the strongest, you know, if you really want the car to push something, like haul something, whatever, you definitely want to put it in a reverse gear. That'll give you the biggest amount of force, the biggest amount of torque. Well, some transmissions aren't like this. Sometimes some transmissions, they have the same gear for first and reverse, so you can it'll give you the same torque in first and reverse. But here in this case, as you've just seen, the reverse gear is a lot slower but a lot stronger. Okay, that's their opposite forces. If you want to go faster, you have less force. If you want to go slower, you have more force. Okay, it's exactly like riding a bicycle. In fact, this here works exactly like a bicycle, except the bicycle, it has I'll just lay the camera down here. Actually, just give me a second. I'll show you. I've shown you first gear, reverse. I'll show you a second and third. Then I'll compare this. It works. The cage, the clutch rollers, they work almost the exact same concept as the bicycle. You know how you pedal the bicycle one way, and if it starts going faster, then you know the pedals aren't turning your feet. You know, you can just hold your feet still, and the bicycle is still turning, like when you're going down a really steep hill, right? That's exactly what happens here. If the bicycle was directly connected to the chain, then you know it would pedal really fast when it's going downhill, and you know it would, instead of you pedaling the bicycle would pedal your feet. So that's why they have that, and I'll explain that further in just a second. But right now, let me just put it in in neutral. Realign the marks. There you go, top. Put this one in the top again. There's still a little bit of friction in the transmission, even if it's in neutral. Right, now let's put it in second. And this is, by the way, this is another way you can determine which gears are which if for whatever reason you're not able to. That right there, second. Okay. Let's see, one full turn. Right there, that's one full turn. No sign of the mark yet. Now I know that on third gear, it's a 1-to-1 radial, so this will give one turn. The output will also give one turn. And it's called direct drive for that reason. In third gear, the engine is directly connected to the output shaft. So the car, the drive shaft will turn at exactly the same speed as the output shaft, as the input shaft, sorry. So let's see, now we have 1/4 turn, still no sign of the mark on the output shaft. 1.5 turns, I can see it. So about 1 3/4 turns, and there it is, the mark on the top. So in second gear, the engine is turning 1.3 times, or actually, sorry, 1.75 times, about that, roughly, faster than the output shaft. Well, let's put it in third. Sorry, let's put it in neutral. A line here. There, it's a line now. There you go. Okay, put it in third. 1. There's one full turn, and the mark is precisely up. From far away, you can see that they're actually turning at exactly the same speed. I don't know. See there? They're actually turning exactly the same speed. See there, both marks are lined up. So third gear for the T96 is 1-to-1 radial, which is direct drive. That's why it's called direct drive. And that's why the overdrive is called overdrive. Now with overdrive, the engine is actually turning slower than the output shaft. With this setup, like once again, if you just have this, there's no way there's no way the engine can turn faster than the output shaft, right? Because they're mechanically connected. Now, the overdrive, this is called direct drive. The engine is directly driving the output shaft, okay? Overdrive, it's obviously more than direct drive. That's why it's called overdrive, okay? So the engine is actually turning slower than the output shaft. It's allowing the output shaft, and therefore the drive shaft and the car, to actually turn faster than the engine. And it's actually done automatically, remember, through this here. Okay, so I think we've covered. That's pretty much the base, how the overdrive works. Now the question here is, since these are splined, they're splined, right? How is it possible for the output shaft to turn faster than the input shaft if they're splined together to the shaft? Okay, now that is a really good question, because like I said, this is connected to this here, but as you can see, let's forget about the ring gear for now. This bigger one with the teeth inside, we've learned how it works. Now let's forget about it. Let's study this one here, the clutch roller shaft gear. Or, it's not actually gear because it's got no teeth. Oh, and by the way, inside here, if you run your fingers, it's actually higher. The steel is actually higher on where the rollers go. So how can you determine if this is worn out? If this gear here is worn out, just run your fingers, and if it's straight, then it's probably worn out. There's a bevel here all around. It's hard to explain these terms. Very awkward. Okay. But now is where I have to calculate, because this is what was bothering me. This here, you see, with this gear, with the pinion cage here, we can actually engage it. Right now it's engaged to lock up the pinions, the little gears, or you can disengage it. Okay. But whatever you do, they're always still connected to the shaft. Okay, that's never changing. You don't have control to disconnect these from the shaft. They're always connected to the shaft. So whatever speed the shaft is turning, these two are turning. We're not talking about the output shaft right now. We're talking about these two. Whatever RPMs you have on the shaft, you have on these here. And remember, the rotations, they're nothing to do, they have got nothing to do, they're completely independent of the outer speed, okay? The outer speed is what you have out as like what we explained, right? Before. I'm not going to explain it again. So I think what I'll do is we can start with some calculations here. Now, if you study gears, if you have a little gear moving a big gear, that big gear will turn really fast, but with not a lot of force. The force will diminish. Speed increases, force decreases. Force increases, speed decreases. Okay, they're inversely proportional. Wow, that really sounds mathematical. Sound like my math teacher in high school. But now the thing here is, but here's the shaft at the center here. Let me zoom in so that you guys don't have to see my ugly face. So here's the shaft, right? It is smaller in diameter than this one, and the clutch cage here, which is smaller, which in turn is smaller than the pinion cage. Let's forget now the thing is, the speed out here is bigger than the speed here. Now the thing is, if this here, the output shaft, different to the manual transmission cars, with just the manual. On the manual transmission cars, this shaft here is just directly connected to this shaft here. So basically, you just have this here connected to this here. But here, what we have is the output shaft. The only time it is connected directly to this shaft here is when these teeth here, remember, are locked in with the teeth of the pinion cage, or just the pinion cage, the pinions, which happens when the ascend gear is pulled out like that, or pulled in to the cage, right? Which is when overdrive is disabled. But now, if we just forget about this here, and we just study this one, just the clutch rollers and the rollers, they're not actually, the shaft is not connected directly to this, to the output shaft. This shaft here is not connected directly to this. So now, I mean, it is connected through this here. What I'm trying to understand is, like, this gear gets, this is bigger than the shaft, so the outer speed turns faster than the shaft. And the outer speed, now if you're getting the remember, if you were to get the transmission through the shaft, then the output shaft will only turn as fast as the shaft because they're connected. But the output shaft here, it's actually connected to the outside of the clutch of these things here, the clutch roller. So instead of it getting the speed from the shaft, it's getting the speed from the outside. And remember, the outside speed, the circumferential speed, is a lot faster than the shaft speed. So it's actually getting, instead of getting the output shaft here, instead of getting its transmission from its power, its torque from the shaft, it's actually getting from the outside. Now my question is here, this is even bigger, so now if this is turning even faster, but the thing is, it reduces again. Now basically what this means is you have a little shaft, a little gear, turning a big gear, so it's going faster. The big gear is now going faster, which is turning an even bigger gear. It's going even faster, but then it gets smaller again, so that you have, again, it's turning slower with more force. That's so, and the output shaft is actually almost the same size as the shaft. So I would think that they would, you know, if you, basically what I'm trying to say is, if you reduce a gear, or if you go to a bigger gear but then you go to a smaller gear again, you're just doing nothing. But what I'm thinking is that, you know, what the manual says, that this that the overdrive is only 30%, about 30% faster. So it says that the ratio is actually 0.7 to 1. Remember, third gear was 1 to 1. Now you have 1 to 0.7. So, you know, in terms of economy and feel of the car, that's a lot. You know, you're going 30%. You're going a third slower. The engine is going a third slower. So, you know, instead of 3,000 RPMs, basically you have 1,000. No, sorry, it's going 1/3 slower. So instead of, so you subtract, it's not going 30% slower. It's going 30%, oh fuck, how can I explain that? It's going 30% slower of the total. So basically 30% of 100. So it's going 70% slower. In terms of the speed, it's going 70% of the original speed, which is 30% slower, if you see what I mean. But visually, it's not that much. I mean, the second gear, if you look at the second gear, so what I'm thinking is that it's the difference is just basically the difference of the output shaft here and the input shaft.